would like to open the meeting of the Dover-Sherborn Joint School Committees. This is the Dover-Sherborn Regional School Committee, the Dover School Committee, and the Sherborn School Committee for April 6th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. We're starting at 6:32. This open meeting is being conducted remotely, and it's consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the state of emergency in the Commonwealth with the COVID-19 virus. And in order to mitigate the transmission, we're allowed to do this remotely. There was a link posted on our agenda, which was posted online on our regional website, that people could access the Zoom app. And also, you must remember that we are recording this. Dawn started recording it at the beginning, so everyone is on video conference. That being said, please take care that if you screen share your computer, anything that you broadcast could be captured by the recording. That also being said, anything you're doing or saying would be captured by the recording for us for posterity. So I know we're all super excited about that. So with that being said, we are going to have community comments. The way that goes is there are some ground rules. It's a little harder since we're all in these teeny little boxes. So I do have people helping me see who wants to comment. With community comments, it's an opportunity for members of the community to be heard, and we respectfully request that you make your comments brief, 2 to 3 minutes, and you just move the discussion forward by adding new information. If it's something that someone's already said, we definitely take them all into account, but just try to add to the conversation. They're an opportunity for us to listen to the members of the community. Unfortunately, though, it is not a forum for answering questions or engaging in a debate, which I know is a little strange. And once the public comment section of the meeting is concluded, we'll move to other business, and the unsolicited comments from the general public will no longer be permitted. And the standard operating procedure will be that the school committee members, if they wish to be recognized, I will call on them. So if you'll just raise your hand, and someone maybe from your respective committee can help me look out. Also, to follow the agenda, I will call on the person who is presenting for the agenda, and they will begin. And then if you have any questions, we'll move to those. So with that being said, we are going to start with our community comments. So if you have anything to say from the general public, if you'll raise your hand, or maybe you can do one of the reaction emojis if those are enabled. So I'm going to give it just a second, and we only have 2 pages, so that's good. I can kind of see. And I don't, oh, I see Amelia Slosby. Hi.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone, all the teachers and superintendents and staff, for the first 2 days back have been great for the kids. I hope that the faculty and staff, teachers all feel the same way, and that everyone's feeling listened and heard to. And I also just want to say I'm really looking forward to the presentation by the DS Aid Committee. I've been so impressed with the work they've done, and just wanted to thank everyone who's been a part of that, and the district for committing to it, and just really, so far, just really impressive work. So thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. Next is it Dolan Sanborn? If you, that's what it's saying is. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to read the little things.
It's a brutal job to read all of those things, and it's not at least something my kiddo made up.
Well, I like it when the kids make up like Ninja Turtle or something, so it's good. It's a real name.
I'm Caleb Dolan. I'm a parent of a 5th grader at Pine Hill and soon to be a kindergartner, and I just also wanted to just speak about the aid work as a member of the committee, and applaud, first of all, the leadership that Beth and Andrew have shown on this. I think it's incredibly easy for affluent, predominantly white school systems to put this work to the side, and many do, and they have been really strong leaders in putting together a really powerful group of people, giving people the room to work. And especially, I think I'm incredibly impressed that they've been driven by what Dover-Sherborn alumni and students have been asking them to do, which is the hard work of becoming a more inclusive and equitable community. And I just wanted to sort of open up tonight, hoping that the board is able to sort of fully lean into this work and support it. It is just incredibly important that if we are going to be a truly like healthy, happy, and whole community, we have to tackle racism head on in our schools. That's very much, you know, again, coming from the students, the alumni, talking about the school system. And I think the will to do this is there, not just on our committee, but in the broader community. But also want to name that it's challenging as a board. This is going to bring up challenging decisions. It's going to shine a light on gaps between who we want to be and who we are currently as a school system. It's going to cause us to embrace real changes in what, why, and how we educate our kids. And it is going to take a lot of work and self-introspection for us all. And so I just want to really urge you to dig head on into the work, embrace that this is going to be challenging, but that if our system does this, it will really bring that portrait of a graduate that we talked about and worked on to life, because our kids have to be able to be a force for making not the world, not just, you know, college degrees and good paying jobs, but they actually have to be a force for making the world better. And that starts with making our school system stronger and better in its embrace of equity and real racial, anti-racist work. So thanks for listening. And I'm excited to see your kind of comments and questions tonight about the aid committee's work.
Thank you. And thank you for serving on the committee.
It's a good time.
Okay, so did I miss anyone else? I don't see any more. Oh, there's Beth. Oh, Beth's clapping. Thank you, Beth. Sorry. I don't see any more raised hands. Oh, there we go. Meet the Clarks. Mila Clark. There we go. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mila Clark. I'm a Dover parent. My husband Chip. We have two children at Chickering. I'm involved with DS Metco, and I'm also on the DS Aid coalition focused on community outreach and engagement. I feel strongly that the school committee should adopt this equity statement. Sorry if you hear squeaking of children in the background. And that our district should wholeheartedly stand behind it. I want to highlight this also. We do not only need our children to hear and internalize the message at school. In some ways, the dinner table conversation is as important as for success as the classroom curriculum. And also this, if we expect this message to really soak into our community and settle as a foundation, it's imperative that we state it loudly to the broader Dover and Sherborn community. I think we can do that partly through providing enriching and engaging opportunities and safe spaces for discussion, all of which are being planned. More than that, though, with this equity message as part of our shared understanding, we need to be and grow together as neighbors and friends, just like our kids do. We believe, if this is a guiding principle of our schools, may it be so for our community. Do you have anything to say?
Well, thank you very much. This is by far my best community comments that I've ever posted at a meeting. So if the rest of the meeting is as great as this, I'm very excited. So with that, I'm going to turn this over actually to Dr. Gio to kick us off. And then I know it goes on to Kate, I believe. And then you all cue me back in when you need me to take over. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. Before I move forward with the actual agenda item, the equity statement item, I want to be sure to thank all of our members who've been part of DSA for this past year's work. We've had quite a few meetings and separate subcommittee meetings. People have really put in the time and commitment to this work, and I just want to thank them for that and also for coming tonight. It says a lot about your commitment and to the betterment of our schools. Just as a reminder, I want to just look back quickly at where we've come. Remember, we made this a goal in our strategic plan because the messages coming to me when I was doing my entry here 4 years ago were loud and clear, that people really, really felt that we should be doing a deeper dive on issues of, especially issues of equity and race, but all of the above. We wanted, the message that I was hearing is that every single kid should feel safe, welcome here, a part of the community, that there should not be one group that's in and one group that's out. And quite honestly, it's felt like that to me at times in my career, even as a student at Dover-Sherborn so many years ago. But we made a decision, a conscious decision to go after this. The leadership team was adamant that this be a priority, and that's they were very instrumental in us including it in the strategic plan. The hashtag #WeAreDS was our kind of kickoff attempt. And what we were trying to say to the whole community is, look, every single person who attends school here has a right to their seat here. And we need to ensure that they feel valued and welcomed. And that was really important to us. We have gone a lot further, I feel, as a system. We've done a lot of professional development work on actually being actively anti-racist. We've had many, many people participate in the ideas training. We have had full day professional development to talk about issues of race and differences and diversity. And we really made sure that we had time to process these things. And we've had books in common. We had the Mr. Joy events that were part of our professional development and part of our community education. We did the Michael Fallon events at the middle school and high school. We've really gone in deep. However, with those terrible tragedies last year with Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and the Floyd murder, people came forward in droves, and we're crystal clear in saying we must do more in terms of our teaching. Many students, graduates, current students, students of color, white students, all different backgrounds came forward saying, please, it's time for us to do a deeper dive on this. And we formed the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force and realized a task force is not really what we're looking for. A task force gives the suggestion that this is something that's going to be taken care of and we can move on, and it isn't. This is something we should be working on as a district because we owe it to our children to have them prepared to enter a very, very diverse world. And so, so that's where we are. We've got awesome school committee members who've been serving on the DS-Aid committee in Kate Potter, Lynn Collins, Nancy Cordell, and Sarah Gutierrez Dunn. And I just want to thank them for being at all of our meetings, going all in on this. And I'm actually going to turn it over to them so they can share some thinking about a possible equity statement for adoption by the three committees. So I'll turn it over to you, Kate, if that's okay. If that's okay with you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Keough. I think I can speak for all of us who are on the school committees and DS-Aid when I say that I'm proud of the work we've done so far. As Dr. Keough just mentioned, we've accomplished some great things and we still have far to go. DS-Aid, which, just to state it again, because people always ask, stands for Dover and Sherborn for Anti-Racism, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. It's a group of roughly 45 people. This group is made up of teachers, parents, administrators, school committee members, students, and alum. We have 6 subcommittees ranging from community outreach to policy, data, climate and culture, curriculum, and others. And before presenting the equity statement that we will be discussing in a few minutes, the 4 school committee members who are also part of DS-Aid thought it would be helpful to share some of the thinking that went into the writing of the statement. The statement was drafted several months ago, shared with the DS-AID committee, and edited by many people. It has been a collaborative effort. As representatives of the DS school committees on DS-AID, we propose that the Dover, Sherborn, and regional school committees adopt the attached equity anti-racism statement as a demonstration of our support for the district's equity and anti-racism work. The rationale for this statement and its importance are set out below. And Nancy Cordell, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off, that would be great.
Sure. Thanks, Kate. Our district-wide non-discrimination policy states that public schools have the responsibility to overcome, insofar as possible, any barriers that prevent children from achieving their potential. Number 2, as set out in our strategic plan, we are a nationally recognized high-performing school district. Our excellence is no accident. We pour resources into our schools so that our kids can succeed. We dedicate our financial resources, intellectual power, and our time to ensure that our kids receive the best educational experience possible. In short, we dismantle barriers, and as our record shows, we're really good at it.
As applied to students of color, we know from studies, literature, and actual experience that in this country, achievement gaps exist between Black and white students. We also know from science that race is not the cause of those gaps. Said another way, ability is distributed equally among Black and white children. Opportunity, however, is not. We can talk for hours about the factors that contribute to the inequitable distribution of opportunity, but the bottom line is that we, as a nationally recognized high-achieving district, owe it to our students to figure out if any of those factors exist within our own walls and then eliminate them if they do. Perhaps they're sewn into the fabric of our policies and our practices without us realizing it. Perhaps we can't see them because we haven't actually walked in everyone's shoes. Maybe they are the lingering effects of historical barriers we had no hand in creating. Or maybe the people confronting the barriers have not felt empowered to speak up. Whatever the cause, if they exist, we have the responsibility and our district leadership has the courage to confront them head on. We also owe it to our students to help them understand their responsibility as United States citizens, community members, and leaders to act in pursuit of equity within the institutions in which they serve and participate. Because when opportunity is compromised for entire categories of people, we either benefit from, perpetuate, or suffer from the resulting inequity, none of which is acceptable.
As applied to our white students, we know that although Dover and Sherborn are becoming more diverse, the country is much more diverse than we are. Moreover, the latest census shows that the number of racial and ethnic minorities in the US is increasing, while the white population is actually declining. As such, racial and ethnic minorities accounted for all of the nation's population growth between 2010 and 2020. We know from the extreme segregation we are currently living in, the greater Boston area ranks 15 out of 51 for segregation, that when we fail to expose our children to the diversity that exists outside of our bubble, and when we provide our children with an incomplete picture of the American experience, they enter the world with a lack of understanding, fear of, and desire to avoid the varied cultures and races represented in their classrooms, college dorms, workplaces, and neighborhoods. As recent acts of violence and hatred against ethnic and religious minorities have clearly demonstrated, ignorance, fear, and avoidance of others skews one's perspective and limits their options in the world. So we must ensure that our students leave DS equipped to fully and successfully navigate college, career, and life in a diverse world.
As a school committee and administration overseeing a nationally ranked high-achieving school district, we have the confidence to reflect inwardly and evaluate the extent to which we may be unintentionally erecting or maintaining barriers that limit the opportunities and therefore the potential of our students of color. Excellence requires this because when our students of color succeed, all of our students benefit. An essential next step in that journey for our schools is to more fully understand our strengths and challenges. This means looking deeply at our talent practices, our curriculum, and our student experience. This is not bringing in a few guest speakers and doing a few professional development sessions. This is embracing material change in the why, what, and how we educate. By adopting this statement, we'll explicitly acknowledge that it takes more than respect and tolerance of differences to ensure that all students are given the opportunity to achieve their full potential. Through this statement, we commit to supporting the administration and our educators as they do the important work necessary of actively seeking out and dismantling barriers, engaging in culturally responsive pedagogy, and fostering an inclusive school community. This is anti-racism.
Thank you, everyone. And now, Angie, if it's okay with you, I would like to read the equity statement and then open it up for school committee discussion. Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you. The Dover-Sherborn Public Schools are committed to producing graduates who are ready for college, career, and life in a diverse world. We are committed to ensuring that every student has the greatest opportunity to learn through equitable access to the resources and supports that they need to meet our district's standard of excellence. We recognize that equity is essential to achieving equality, and as such, we are committed to closing the racial opportunity gap through measures including creating learning communities rooted in culturally responsive pedagogy, empowering all learners with the understanding of how, whether it be through action or inaction, systemic and institutional inequities are created and or perpetuated, and the role and responsibility of every citizen to identify and dismantle such inequities. Fostering a school climate and culture in which all students feel a sense of belonging and safety, and providing learners with resources and academic support necessary to eliminate barriers to equitable participation in courses and programs. It is therefore the expectation of the school committees that district educators are committed to working daily to dismantle systems that perpetuate historical inequities. Toward this end, the school committees commit to supporting and partnering with our educators in the examination of systemic, institutional, and individual biases that serve to reinforce these inequities.
Okay, so first, I guess we should open it up to any questions. So I think probably the best way to do this is through each committee. What do you think, Maggie and Leslie?
Yeah, probably.
Probably just to make it more organized. Do you want to start with yours, Leslie? We're Dover, then Region, then Sherborn, kind of alphabetical.
Sure. Does anyone on the Dover committee have a question and or a comment? Mark, go ahead.
Sure. First, I'd like to say thank you so much. I knew from the beginning that structuring the committee the way I heard that it was structured would be powerful, and I am actually blown away by the language here. I think it's beautiful and clear, and it gives a real sense of what we can do as a district and where we'd like to head. And it seems actionable. So I'm so excited, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else from Dover? Liz, go ahead.
I just want to second what Mark said. It's so clear and it embodies like everything who I hope we become as a community. It's a great goal. I guess my only question was, and I'm new to the committee, so I might be asking something that's already happening, but it to me, this is like a really big goal and it's going to take a lot of work to implement it. And so I'm curious what that's going to look like. And if we've considered ever like exploring having an outside consultant who is used to working with maybe a community like ours. I know the school I work at right now, we have a Harvard professor who's incredible, and she's been helping to develop our professional development for teachers, but also working with our administrators to look through all of our policies and procedures to make sure that there aren't any systemic biases built into them. So just a question I'm wondering if we're thinking about.
I'd be happy to answer that, Angie, if that's okay. And Kate, if that's all right with you.
That'd be great. Thank you, Dr. Kia.
Okay, so it's a great question, Liz. And actually, I couldn't agree more with you. We are, as a system, if this is adopted, which I hope it will be, are committing to some really, really deep work that's going to take a full effort, and it's going to take courage, frankly, because we're going to have to look at ourselves in the mirror. And to that end, we feel that the equity audit is a big part of that. We, one of the hardest challenges, I think, for DSA this year was holding back because people want to get moving on some of these issues that we've already identified. But we also appreciate that the benefits of having an outside organization take a look at our system with an impartial eye and an unbiased eye, and let us know what they see with a deep dive, and then give us a roadmap for how to attack those things. So that is part of the plan, and Beth is going to speak to that after this, the next item. And I apologize that that was put on late, but we really meant to include it on the agenda, that we would talk about the equity audit a little bit. And this is exactly why, because we knew this question would come up. So it's a great question, and thank you. I hope that answers it.
Thank you, Liz. Colleen, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I just want to thank everyone for all the work that's gone into this. I think it's an incredibly important framework that we'll be able to work within as a committee, but also for our teachers. It gives them, it's empowering. I think it's empowering for the conversations, the courageous conversations that are going to happen at school, are going to happen at home. I really appreciate the unwavering focus on the anti-racism aspect. I really strongly believe that is what this moment calls us to do. And I believe that we're doing it. I'm just proud of the work you guys have done and for our committee. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Colleen. Okay, Angie, I think we were all set. Maybe we'll pass it off to Maggie.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, everybody. Good evening. Members of the regional committee, do you have comments or questions? Anne.
Thanks, and sorry to heap more praise on the group. Thank you so much for all of that work, and thank you for everyone who helped edit into the position that we have before us that was just read to us tonight, because I think it's really well crafted, and there was clearly a lot of work done between the draft that we first saw in this draft. So thank you, I appreciate that. I would just like to share my hope, and I assume that this is embedded, but my hope that part of this journey includes learning how to continue forward with this, so that our students, or even community members or teachers, as they move from our community out into the world, can continue to ask the right questions and to continue to examine and address issues of biases and racism and equity, so that we take that beyond our community, and also so that we can continue to then use that work and those lessons that we've learned to address other issues beyond racism when the time is appropriate, so that it's kind of the teach a man to fish metaphor. So that I'm just hoping that that's part of it. I'd love to hear a little bit more from those who've done more of the work about that part of the process. Thanks.
Does somebody want to talk a little bit about that answer? Kate's got her hand up.
Yeah, well, and I don't know if I have a whole bunch of thoughts buzzing around, so I don't know if I'm going to answer you exactly, but I know we've talked a lot on DSAID about making changes that are part of our fabric. And while having one or two amazing speakers is great, We are not looking to check a box and then move on to something else. We're looking for ways to add to our curriculum, to add to the different affinity groups we have at school, ways that will be permanently change, in my opinion, DS for the better, and will go on no matter who has that job. You know, that person might retire, that role will exist moving forward. I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. And then from the student perspective, I think, and I guess, you know, I'm thinking as a parent and a school committee member too, like, you know, right, you have a daughter in college, you try to fill them up and teach them what you can and model behavior and have the faith that they're going to carry that out into the world to the best of their ability.
No,
Also, along those lines, and it will, my suggestion to all of you would be, to our school committee members would be, and to our administrators would be, to continue to make this area of focus in your strategic plans, probably forevermore. I mean, I don't see how you ever get to a point where it's like, oh, okay, we're all set, we can check this box because everybody is perfect in this regard. This will be a continuing effort, and I think it just needs to be maybe even more clearly specified in the next round of the strategic plan, which I'm sure you'll be doing with the new super. Would you add to that, Beth, or is that?
Sure. And I loved what you said about teaching us to fish. And I think that that's key, and that having an equity audit, we don't want our consultant or consultants to come in and take our policies and our data and go behind closed doors and analyze everything for us and then give us a report. I think the goal is to work with the educators to make sure that we understand how to look for bias in materials and to give us structures, frameworks for social justice, frameworks for anti-racism education that we can continue to build on over time. I'm hopeful that they'll help us to identify the data that would be meaningful and impactful to follow over time, and then build it into the data dashboard that we're considering as a district. Policies, again, teaching school administrators and the school committee on how to look at policies, how to create policies that involve many voices and multiple perspectives. And then hiring practices, as we continue to tweak those and improve those, hopefully those will just continue and evolve over time. So to your point, I'm hopeful that the work that has started already and will continue to work, especially with the help of the equity audit, will last forevermore.
Thank you all. That was very, very helpful and thorough. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Judy.
Yeah, I just want to first of all say how beautifully written the memo that you sent to us and the policy is. It was, I read it twice. It was really incredibly well constructed, and I'm so heartened by the fact of exactly what Kate said, which is doing a deep dive here and kind of figuring out what it is that we as a, you know, community of privilege in a sense, you know, don't know. Okay. And figuring out what we don't know and what we could be doing to teach our children, you know, to look at the world in a different way than we were taught. And this is such wonderful and important work, and a positive step. Here we are a year into this pandemic, and it gives me a lot of hope. And so I wanted to just say thank you. And I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful policy that you wrote. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Kate or Lynn, did you want to make a comment or anything at this time?
I mean, my thought, and going back to Anne's question, I like characterizing it as teaching a person to fish. I think right now, the main goal is literally that: expose our students to the full picture of, the American experience. And once they know how to fish, it's up to them. You know, I mean, we hope we create students, children, adults that will actively, you know, seek out, recognize, seek out, you know, inequities, barriers, whatever. And, you know, they will take what they learn from DS and do what they will. And hopefully, you know, they'll follow the teachings they've gotten here, and otherwise, you know, everyone's free to develop their own opinions on, you know, how to handle these issues. But, you know, we send them out there with a fishing pole and the right bait, and hopefully they use it.
Any other comments from the region? I will just say this. This is, I think, in the 4 years that I've been a part of the school committees, probably for me, the most significant and important thing that our collective committees have tackled. And I am deeply grateful to all of the members of DS Aid, as well as to the leadership for being willing to take this on. I think that oftentimes in high performing and affluent communities, there's a real reluctance to have honest and public dialogue about, you know, our you know, dirty laundry, for want of a better word. I think that there isn't really always an outside motivator to make changes or to tackle problems when there isn't some direct line to better test scores or improvement of the excellence of your school system. And I think that the work that we've done this year, and that you, as the member of the committees, the members of the aid group, have begun to address these difficult questions with courage and in a systematic, broad-based coalition, suggests to me that there is the groundswell of support in our community to take on these challenges in a way that's respectful and brave, and that will allow us all to become better people and to be better humans on earth. I talked about this a little bit with my own older children who are graduates in the last 5 years from the school. And they were, you know, having left DS, which oftentimes graduates refer to as the bubble, were skeptical about whether or not this is a real commitment that this community can make. And I, for the first time, hearing folks talk tonight and hearing members of AID speak up in community comments and hearing from my colleagues how important this work is to you, feel hopeful and optimistic. And I'm very grateful that we're approaching this in a thoughtful, broad-based, and systematic way. I agree that the work that we've done in the past, bringing speakers, having special days, having these things, you know, are great and important. But, you know, this for me has been sometimes throwing spaghetti at the wall, or, you know, removing sand from the beach with a teaspoon. And the work that you have done and the rationale that this organization has laid out around this work, I'm profoundly, profoundly grateful, and thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to my Sherborn folks. So if anyone from Sherborn from the Sherborn School Committee has a comment or a question, please raise your hand. If not, then, oh, Dennis.
Hey, team. So first, I echo all the comments that everybody's mentioned so far. Thank you. And I think this is a great step towards many of the initiatives that you guys had outlined throughout the conversation here. Just a question or clarity, maybe for me, being maybe a little bit newer to the school committee here. This focuses on inclusion and whatnot. It seems very focused on race. And I just wanted to see, had the team thought about other sort of variants of inclusion, or are there other programs that are achieving other objectives that this sort of partners with to think about equity and inclusion, maybe in the broadest sense of those terms?
Kate, do you want to answer that one, or someone else in the committee?
I'm happy to as well. Go ahead. You want to, Kate?
Why don't you kick it off and then I'll jump in.
Yeah, really, Dennis, what we realized, what I was trying to capture in my preface to all of this was that when we originally came after this, we were really looking at equity through multiple lenses. So the thing that was jumping out at me, quite honestly, in the entry process was, yes, in fact, related to race, and was in fact related to the continuing ethnic diversity of our school system. But also what rose to the surface was how difficult it can be for a kid who is, say, not athletic, not academically inclined, socially awkward, on the autism spectrum, fill in the blank, struggling with their own identity, and which is natural for kids in general to try to figure out where they're going to fit in the world. So all of this was part of what we were focused on initially. But what we learned through, one of our learnings, I would argue, one of my learnings, is that what commonly happens when school systems try to address this, especially school systems with our similar kind of demographic, is that we say we're committed to equity, but then we never really talk about the issues of race. And the issues are because they're so much harder to talk about. And what we've heard from teachers through feedback is that they're afraid to talk about issues of race because A, they might make a mistake, or B, they might get called on it for trying to indoctrinate students. So what we've concluded over this 4-year time is that we need to be more deliberate and more specific. So we do not shy away from saying anti-racist. We had quite a bit of discussion about this with the DSA, a ton of discussion, because remember, well, you weren't here for it, Dennis, but you might have seen something in Letters Home to Families. When we started, we were the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. And that fits exactly what I was just describing. But we were not willing to hang a hat or a sign on the race issues. And yet, we know there's racial diversity in our communities and certainly in our country, and that issues of race are dominating the news in recent years. And yet my own children came back from education at large universities, diverse universities, UVA, for example, saying, Dad, I can't believe I came out of our school system and I didn't fully grasp how different the rest of the world is. And I've now taken much better courses and I feel better educated. And she said, you need to concentrate on that as the person in charge of Dover-Sherborn School. So it's interesting how influential our kids can be. And speaking of kids, we have some students on here tonight from DSA, and I'm so thankful for them coming. And Beth, can you fill in the blanks for me? Because I haven't been on all the subcommittees. I know Caitlin Britt is here.
Caitlin Britt is here, and then Chelsea O'Heen is here as well.
Thank you, guys. And someone else, I think? No?
No, not unless they're under a different name.
Okay, good. Well, thank you guys for coming. So Dennis, I hope that answers your question. If not, I'm happy to elaborate.
Kate, maybe you go and then.
Go ahead, Kate.
Oh, thanks, Andy. Yeah, actually, Andrew, I'm just going to piggyback off of what you said, because I was remembering how long it took us to find a name for this group, and Beth, I think, what was it? At least a month it took us to figure out a name, and it was because people felt so strongly about including all groups and making sure it wasn't only about one thing. I think we landed on a great name, but I think that that was a metaphor for how passionate this whole group of DSAID committee members are about making sure that everyone feels included. And I know I can speak for my own subcommittee that, you know, race has come up a lot, yes, but so has sexual identity, mental health issues, physical abilities and inabilities, really wanting to make sure that we broadly included everyone, while making sure that we were standing clearly on our intention of declaring ourselves to be an anti-racist district.
That's certainly helpful. Don't disagree with anything which you guys said. So maybe let me pare it back to make sure I understand. There is certainly a focus on race, but this is inclusion and equity in the largest sense of the terms, meaning gender identity, meaning you know, all the different things, Andrew, that you had mentioned that you kind of see and deal with, and the other professionals deal with on a day-to-day basis. This is equity and inclusion, not targeted at race specifically. Is that true?
It is encompassing everything, but we deliberately call out race because we know that's something that we have not called out in the past. And that's, but yes, it does encompasses everything. Yeah.
Thank you.
Lynn?
And I mean, one of the major influences on the creation of this task force was the messages, communications that we received from alumni of color describing their own experiences at DS. And, you know, our recognition, especially in light of recent events, of how important it is to finally address racism specifically. And so we you know, we're willing to face it, and we need to. And so it is important to us that anti-racism be a key feature, a key mission of the aid group, and we've expressed it that way. So it's absolutely a priority. And as Andrew said, like, you know, we specifically call it out in our statement, because if we don't, we just continue this cycle of not learning how to talk about race. And, you know, until it's called out, it just gets absorbed into inclusion in general. And we're in a place now where we just can't continue operating in that mode.
You know, Lynn, if I have to piggyback on that, because there have been recent events that'll leave the town's name out of it, where anti-Semitism was off the charts in a like community. It wasn't racism that we know of, but it was anti-Semitism to the max, of kids who've been told, look, it's important that we be nice to each other. We really care about being nice to each other. You know, we're a kind community. We care about each other. But somewhere along the line, the messages got mixed, and the kids felt like they could make some really horrific and offensive comments publicly. And that's happened at Dover-Sherborn. And I too don't like to air out the dirty laundry, so I won't. But I can guarantee you it's happened. I've been here for 50 years. It has happened here, and it will happen here again, unless we're bold in saying this is not what we are about. And the other thing I was going to add to this is that this is something you should be saying on a regular basis. You should be referring back to this. And when this is a core value, this is in essence a core value statement among our other core values. And when it's violated, the system better take a strong stance, or it doesn't mean a damn thing.
Are there any more comments from the Sherborn Committee? We have page through. So that being said, before I move for us to adopt the statement, we're going to do it each by committee as well. I'm glad that Dr. Keogh and Beth recognized our students who are on here. And also I see we have many teachers who are on here as well. And so I just wanted to see if the students wanted to say anything, because I didn't want you to think during community comment you can comment as well. But if you want to, you can. If you don't, that's fine too. But I just wanted to thank the students for participating and giving us your voice, because that's why we're here. It's your voice. And I hope we respect it and did what you want us to do. So thank you. And also Dr. Keogh's heard me say this before. I'm from the South. And so I joke that in the South, we just kind of like say things, we blurt it out, and then we apologize later. And I've told him when I got here, I would say things and people would look at me. And I was like, it's not very New England. We just kind of don't talk about it. I told him, I said, it's kind of like we shove it under the rug. And at some point we're just tripping over a lumpy rug all day long. Because I've gone to him before and said, can't we just say something? And it's just not done. So that's what this is to me. It's naming it, because I'm not very coordinated, as you all know, because I fall down the stairs carrying laundry. So I'm really bad on lumpy rugs. So I just assume just throw it out there and let's talk about it, even if it is unpleasant. I think we will get further in life. So I appreciate the committee, and I appreciate Dr. Keogh and Beth for heading this and saying this is important. So thank you all very much. So with that being said, Kate, do you want to reread the statement, or do you think everybody has it so we can go ahead and move to adopt this equity statement, or do you all want to hear it again? Since we've had all our questions and comments.
I'm happy to reread it, but
I mean, I think I'm good unless anybody feels like we need to hear it again. I think we're good. All right, so do you want to start, Maggie, do you want to start with the region and then we'll trickle down?
Sure. If members of the regional school committee could take yourselves off mute. Do I have a motion to adopt the equity statement as read by Kate and in your packet?
Lynn Collins, so moved.
Motion by Lynn Collins. Anne?
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Ann Hovey. Any discussion? Okay, Judy Miller?
Judy Miller, yes.
Lynn Collins?
Lynn Collins, yes.
Kate Potter?
Kate Potter, yes.
And Ann Hovey?
Ann Hovey, yes.
And Maggie Sharon, yes.
Okay, you want to do Dover next?
Dover members, could you all take yourself off mute, please? Do I have a motion to adopt the equity statement as presented in the packet this evening?
So moved.
Second,
Second?
Colleen, thank you, sorry. Any discussion? Okay, Sarah Gutierrez Dunn,
Yes.
Colleen Burt,
Colleen Burt, yes.
Mark Healy,
Healy, yes.
Liz Grossman,
Liz Grossman, yes.
and Leslie Leon, yes.
So if my Sherborn committee will take themselves off mute, and do I have a motion to adopt the equity statement as presented and is in your packet?
So move, Nancy Cordell.
Do I have a second?
Tim Squat, second.
And do I have any discussion? So hearing none, I'll poll the members. Megan Page. Oh, I think you're on mute. She said yes. Megan Page, yes, sorry. Dennis.
Dennis Squat, yes.
Nancy.
Nancy Cordell, yes.
And Angie Johnson, yes. Okay, so thank you all. Again, thank you for your hard work, and thank you for helping us to move forward. So the next thing we're going to move to is the update on the equity audit, and that is what Dr. Keogh is going to present to us that he just alluded to earlier.
Yes, actually what I said before was a good segue to Beth. Beth's done, she's taken a point on pursuing the equity audit, so I'm going to let her speak to what she's found. And kind of, if you could, Beth, just to remind folks kind of what we're striving for in terms of our timeline.
Sure. So thank you. So thinking about the work that Andrew mentioned that has come out of We Are DS as well as the feedback that we've gotten from our alumni and current and former Boston students, and our own experiences, the 45 different experiences of the members on DS Aid. We have, did a huge brainstorm in all that we would like Dover-Sherborn to become over time. That being said, we all realize the importance of having some baseline data, because my experience is different than perhaps Chelsea's experience, which is different than Caitlin's experience. So finding out, where we are, where are our greatest needs, and what are the action steps that will have the biggest impact for the most people, and maybe that's where we begin. So as DS Aid, a committee, we have asked that we move forward with an equity audit, and I'd like to thank Barb Brown and Gina Cooper, who are our leaders for the Data and Accountability Subcommittee. They did a really nice job of looking at other districts who have done equity audits and the data that they've asked to be analyzed. They've communicated with each of our 6 subcommittees to find out what data would be helpful in our perspective and from our realm. And they created a long list of data points that we would like to be considered, including collecting data through focus groups with students, educators, and parents, as well as doing surveys with all constituent groups, looking at our student data on academic performance, course enrollment, tracking, discipline, social emotional needs, looking at the supports that we offer to our students and making sure that we're equitable and providing all the necessary supports for students to meet their potential, looking at our policies and our practices, those that are both in writing, and perhaps the most dangerous, the ones that aren't in writing, that we just kind of do because we've always done them. Looking at the diversity in our staff and what can we do to attract and retain a more diverse faculty. Looking at our leadership team and our staff and their ability to address issues of racism as they come up. Looking at the curriculum, which we know will be a multi-year process. We have 13 years of curriculum across all subjects. We want to make sure that we are creating or presenting an accurate perspective and story of what someone referred to as, American history and the American story, as well as including multiple voices and perspectives in there. Looking at standardized testing data, understanding the experience of students and staff through culture and climate interviews, looking at our engagement with families in the community to make sure that we are engaging all of our families, whether they are in Boston or Dover and Sherborn, that we're communicating effectively with families whose perhaps first language is not English, looking at our financial resources and reviewing them to make sure that we are supporting what's in the strategic plan and what we prioritize as a committee. And then coming up with a report for us to consider and action steps and perhaps resources to help us move those action steps forward. And ideally, all of that would be folded into the next strategic plan. So all that said, I've spent much of the fall and winter interviewing different agencies and consultants. Some of them have been able to address what we're looking for. As Dennis asked earlier, is this inclusive of many marginalized groups and identities, or is it just about race? Knowing that we wanted to look at it through a multi-group perspective, some of the agencies we interviewed were automatically eliminated because they only focus on race. That being said, we have a good handful of people who are interested and willing to provide us with bids and proposals, but we wanted to bring it forward to you tonight that before we officially post it on the state website, our RFP, and start officially collecting bids, we want it to be known that we're looking at a cost in the range of $50,000 to $100,000 for the equity audit. That being said, with Dawn's help and of course Andrew's help, we feel that we can support that, not through the general budget, but through grants and gifts that we have. So there's no need for you to lose sleep at night and no need to start a fundraiser. We do feel that we can cover that cost. We just want to make sure you're aware of it because it is quite large. And if you are in support of us moving forward, we will post that RFP as soon as possible so that we can officially vet these agencies and identify one to begin working this spring to lay the groundwork for what will really kick off this fall. And we're hoping to have a final report by next January, which is great timing in terms of developing the next strategic plan.
Thank you, Beth. So Andrew, do we need to vote on that to adopt, or we're just posting?
No, this isn't an action required item. It's more that we want you to be aware that we have, as Beth said, some gift money, some grant money that we think we could apply. And so we can do it with existing funds. But at the same time, we didn't want you to, hear through the grapevine that we were putting this kind of money into an equity audit. And we wanted to be forthright with you and letting you know that this costs money. It costs a lot of money. And personally, I speak now as a resident, I think it's where we put our money where our mouth is. It matters that sometimes you have to pay for things like this. And we think I obviously, as the school leader, feel it's important enough to push it forward, but we didn't want you to be in the dark on it, that's all.
And if I could maybe just add that going over that list of data points is quite extensive. And I think it is a lot of work to be done ahead of us. To Anne's original point, we do want to make sure that we internalize these practices so we don't have to, spend this money every 5 or 10 years. And that being said, I know that the price tag looks quite large, but if you equate it to a position that many districts have as a coordinator of equity or a director of student services and equity, you're looking at $100,000 position there. So if this is money that we could put towards really collecting that data, showing our strengths, showing our weaknesses, I think we could say that it's giving us at least a year's worth of work and insight that person could have done in that time.
Maggie, you had a question?
Well, I wanted to weigh in. I do understand that it's an expense and a significant one, but I also think it's great timing because it comes at the beginning of our next strategic planning process. And so I think that doing this work now will give us a ton of data that will be important baseline data for whatever, specific plans and goals come through strategic planning. So I think it will actually be really well leveraged for where we're going in the future.
Thank you, Maggie. Anybody else? Oh, Lynn.
I have been a huge fan of the idea of equity audits from the beginning of, the creation of this committee, because it really is the framework for us. Everything we do will be data informed. It's so important to do this work based on facts and data, because doing otherwise can do more harm than good. Being well-intentioned only gets you so far. And that's one of the things that I'm really proud of AID in its recognition of that, we understand there are things we don't know. We're all coming at this with a level of humility that I think is going to really benefit us over the course of, the lifetime of this. And you get what you pay for. And, given the importance of this, it did not surprise me either that this was going to be a significant expense.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth, for presenting that to us. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Dr. Keogh, or shall we move on to the?
No, I would, we can move on. I would just add that just for those who were not on the school committees when we did our special education review, just how much of a benefit that was to the system, to have an outside set of eyes look at our special education program in K-12. We really needed that. And I, coming in as a new superintendent with a special ed background, could have done some of it, but it would have lost some credibility because it would have seemed like it was just my opinion. It's really important that you get outside experts who can be impartial to do this. And so I think that's in part large part what you're paying for. And then again, whoever said it is correct, Lynn, there's a lot of data. And as Liz pointed out, there's so much that you really need a process in order to parse it out and figure out what you're going to go after. And that's why it dovetails so nicely with the strategic plan.
Dennis, I'm sorry. I missed you there at first. Go ahead.
Related to the strategic plan, is there specific data that we think will be helpful for the strategic plan that you guys have worked into the RFP to ensure that whomever is bidding on this understands how these two initiatives work together? I'm assuming we're not going to review the RFP and you guys are taking that as an administrative team, but I don't want to assume the interpretation or the integration between those two initiatives.
That's a really, really, really good and important question, Dennis. And, you know, Beth went through the kinds of things that are included in it, but they very much dovetail with the kinds of things that we believe, namely because they're already in the strategic plan, things that we're concentrating on, like, for example, SEL, social emotional learning and well-being of our students has been a priority for the system. And if you look closely at the things that are in the description of what we're asking to be done, this is also incorporated in it. Do we provide programs for kids? Do you feel like your kids have programs? Do your kids feel like they have supports for where to turn? So I think it does dovetail nicely with our existing strategic plan and where we as the leadership team think it's going moving forward. I definitely think it's really nice alignment. It's a great question.
May I add too, when we started the Portrait of a Graduate process, we did that right after creating the strategic plan, even though it was referenced in the strategic plan, and realized that had we done the opposite, it would have been more helpful to get more details about what that looks like. But we're ready and we have those questions and ideas to tackle in the next strategic plan. And similarly, when I interviewed all of these agencies, one of their standards questions is, where are you in your strategic planning process? And when I say, oh, we're about up for renewal, we need to go back and clean up our old strategic plan and add, new points or, to existing buckets or create new buckets, they were all saying and commending us that that's a perfect point to be entering this process, is getting this data and then inserting the recommendations into the next plan.
And who will they be reporting to? Like who owns a relationship with the consultant? Is it the interim super? Beth, is it you? Is it DSA? Is it a committee?
I would envision it being the superintendent and assistant superintendent. But in terms of the connection as they go through this process, that we'd be the contacts. But we also want to be as hands-off as possible so that we're not influencing. We've told them the things we're interested in learning about, but then we kind of have to leave them alone to let them do their work. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that with regard to the strategic plan is we as a leadership team are going to not begin the process of creating the next strategic plan, but at least looking at the things that are in it to see if there are places where we clearly need to double down on our work, and this would be one of them, but other places where we've made the progress to our satisfaction and we can move on. Usually in my experience, the strategic plan doesn't change dramatically in terms of its kind of 5 major areas of focus. It's more in the subcategories of focus. And that's what you guys will have to work on. And I would imagine that could be done as part of the summer leadership retreat and then into the school year with the school committees to make sure that they are involved and have a say in it. And what worked for us last time was that everybody had a shot at telling us what they thought was working and what wasn't working. And that's why I was able to say, I'm not the one who thinks that the special education program needs to be reviewed. This is what you all told me. So
Maggie and then Lynn.
I guess I just wanted to ask if I think it would be very important that the school committee be the recipient of the equity reports, whether it's, in executive session. If there are sensitive items in there, then we would need to take it in executive session somehow. But I do think that would need to be the audience for the report. Although I do think that obviously school administrators are the point persons for getting the actual work done.
Yeah, I mean, that is what we did last time as well. We gave you guys the report. There were concerns. Remember, with special education, with a small school system, there were things that could literally be we could identify faculty members, students, so we had to be a little more cautious. I don't know what these folks are going to find, so we would have to look at it through that same lens, just to make sure that we're not humiliating someone unknowingly. So we would just have to be careful about that, but I don't think there'd be any problem with it going to you guys. I don't think that'd be a problem at all.
Lynn?
So there is in response of adding points to the response to Dennis, your question, there's also the steering committee of the of AID. So the steering committee is the heads of each of the subcommittees, of which I'm one. And so the steering committee, and I find myself on email distributions and I don't remember why I'm getting it. I just act on it. So I'm not sure, but I believe that Beth, it's the steering committee that reviewed the RFP and is making sure that the things we need are in there. And so there's also that piece as well. And there is a school committee representative on that steering committee, which is me for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think to support Maggie and Andrew and Lynn, what you said is, I think that the interim superintendent and myself will be the contact people and kind of the legwork of getting all the groups organized and the dates organized and the data all in one place. But I do foresee using the steering committee really to be running ideas past and perhaps helping with some of that work. And ultimately, of course, the report will come before the school committee to consider next steps and how it plays into the strategic plan.
Thank you. Does that satisfy everybody, or is there any other questions or comments? Okay, well, that being said, we're going to move to the the final item on the agenda, which is the 2020-2021 school calendar revision. And Dr. Keogh, I'm going to turn this to you so that you can present to us the logistics of this.
Yes, so as you know, we have built into our student school year an extra day. This actually dates back to my years on the school committee in the late 90s, where it was 183-day school year. The decision was made that the district felt like it would benefit the kids to have these additional days. We have since pared that back to 181 days. And in recent years, when we've had snow day situations that push us into an additional week, or especially when it goes into a later week in the summer, I have, and I think other superintendents have come forward making the recommendation that we move from the 181 to the 180. And that is the case this year. I'm recommending, because with the extra day, we would be releasing our students on June 21st, and knowing that our families are certainly going to be probably more active than ever this summer, and that people are going to be looking to move on from this school year. I'd like to make the recommendation that we make Friday the 18th the last day for students.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions for Dr. Keogh before we? Judy?
Is that Friday going to be a full day or half day?
That Friday would be a half day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else? Nancy?
I think it's spot on.
Thanks, Nancy. The other question, the natural question that comes up on this is the teachers. Teachers do have a day more than the students, so they would still be getting out on the Monday. They'd be getting out on the Monday.
Anyone else? I'm looking through my 2 screens, which is less than it normally is, so I am thankful. Okay, so if that is the case, what we are voting on is whether to adopt that our last instructional day for the students will be made Friday, June 18th, as opposed to Monday, June 21st. And as Judy clarified for us, it is a half day. So I'll start with Sherborn first. Do I have someone to make a motion to adopt our calendar day ending the 18th of June for our students?
So move, Nancy Cordell.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Dennis. Go on.
Okay, and is there any discussion? Okay, that being said, I'm going to pull everybody. Megan? I think Megan Page is yes, but for some reason, Megan, your audio is not working, but I can see you. She's got it. Dennis?
Dennis Quinn, yes.
And Nancy?
Nancy Cordell, yes.
And Angie Johnson, yes. So then Maggie, why don't you take it? And then everybody went first at one point tonight.
There you go. Members of the region, do I have a motion that the last day of school be that Friday? I think it's June 18th.
So moved, Judy Miller.
Motion by Judy Miller. Do I have a second?
Kate
Lynn
Potter.
Collins, second.
Ooh, everyone's fighting for it. We'll give this one to Kate Potter for the second. You can
Lynn,
take
you can do Lynn Potter or Kate Collins.
Yeah. We're really confused. Poor Amy Davis, who's with us tonight in real life. All right. Can you take yourself off mute? Lynn Collins.
Lynn Collins, yes.
Judy Miller.
Judy Miller, yes.
Kate Potter.
Kate Potter, yes.
Ann Hovey.
And have a yes.
And Maggie Sharon, yes.
Oops, sorry. Dover School Committee members, please take yourself off mute. Do I have a motion to approve that the calendar year ends on June 18th for this academic school year?
Mark Healy, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Liz Grossman, second.
Any discussion? Great. Colleen Burt,
Colleen Bird, enthusiastic yes. Thank you.
Sarah Gutierrez Dunn,
Sarah Gutierrez Dunn, yes.
Mark Healy,
Mark Healy, yes.
Liz Grossman,
Liz Grossman, yes.
Leslie Leon, yes.
Thank you, everyone. On
Thank you.
behalf of the families, the teachers who probably would not want the kids back on that Monday, quite honestly, in June. No, this is a big help. So thank you very much. We're lucky that we had the extra day to play with.
I'd also like to mention that you did not call that snow day on that Wednesday, and I think it has come back to
Thank you. Thank you for noticing that, Colleen.
Thank you.
That's a good point.
So yeah, and I think that the families too alike, that there's ample time now to make plans and adjust plans. So thank you all for doing this so expeditiously, because, you know, with COVID, we've had no plans. Now I think people are trying to figure out what can we do to make a little bit of normalcy in our life. So thank you.
If we have another snow day this year, it needs to be a remote day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, the very last item is to adjourn. So can we all just do a unanimous raising of hands to adjourn if you so feel? Thank you all. If not, you know, we can stay and have dinner together or dessert, whatever. But thank you all. So we have adjourned at 7:50, and I will see you all next time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You.